inspired by true events. But I wish it hadn't. Sometimes one day can completely change the rest of your life. This story shows how hurtful the word family can be. Have you ever been hit the hardest by someone you trusted? This story is exactly that. This story shook me to my core, because no one deserves that kind of pain. No one expected this much, but it happened. If you want, let's move on to the story. Enjoy listening. I'm Claire, 31, a graphic designer in Seattle. And exactly 19 days ago, I woke up one morning to find myself in a hospital bed, unable to move, unable to speak. But I could hear every word, every whisper, every lie. And the moment I heard what my husband, Dylan, and his assistant, Vanessa, were planning next to me, like a dead body, my life changed forever. This is my story, and I have to tell it because it might happen to you. But before you dive into this chaos, please hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Leave your country and time of day below, because this story is so crazy. I want to know where you're watching it. Trust me, you'll stay until the end this time. So let me take you back to the beginning. My life before the hospital bed. My life before the accident. My life before I learned the truth about Dylan Barrett, the man I was married to for 6 years. God, even saying his name now makes me sick. But back then, I thought he was perfect. We met at Seattle University. I was studying graphic design. He was studying computer engineering. Dylan was charismatic, passionate, and had big dreams. One day, he would start his own tech company. And indeed, he did. By the 4th year of our marriage, Dylan had built a software development company from scratch. Capital, we had a cute loft in the hill. We were going on vacation to France and Japan. We were talking about getting a dog and maybe starting a family someday. I thought I knew this man inside and out. I thought I knew everything about him. On the surface, everything was fine, but something was terribly wrong. A freelance graphic designer and loved my job. Dylan would tell me about his clients, his projects, his growth plans. I would show him my latest designs and new clients. Every Friday night was our date night. We had inside jokes. We had a life together, or so I thought. About 9 months ago, Vanessa, he hired a new project manager named Harper. She was 27, red-haired, incredibly smart, and, according to Dylan, incredibly talented. He talked about her constantly. Vanessa prepared a fantastic presentation for the client project. Vanessa gave an incredible performance at the client meeting. Vanessa is working on the code with me late tonight. At first, I didn't think anything of it. I trusted my husband. He believed our 6-year marriage meant something. Then I realized how foolish I'd been. Vanessa started popping up everywhere. She was there for company dinners, at the surprise party I threw for Dylan's birthday. She stayed until midnight to help clean up. When I'd bring lunch to the office, Vanessa would sit at Dylan's desk and laugh at his jokes. My friends started commenting. My best friend Mia asked me point blank if I was worried about him. And you know what I said? I said, Dylan loves me. He would never cheat on me. I trust him completely. How blind I am. About 5 months ago, everything started to change. Dylan became distant. He was always on his phone, constantly texting, constantly going into another room to answer calls. Our Friday night dates were canceled more and more often. He stopped touching me the way he used to. He stopped looking at me the way he used to. When I tried to talk to him about it, he said he was stressed out at work, had a big investor meeting coming up, and would return to normal once everything was resolved. I wanted so badly to believe him. I wanted to believe that our marriage wasn't falling apart, that the man I loved wasn't walking away from me. So I suppressed my doubts. I ignored the pit in my stomach when I saw that smile on his face as he looked at his phone. When he started going to the gym more often and buying new clothes, I pretended not to notice. I told myself I was paranoid, insecure, that everything was fine. But something inside me knew my marriage was a lie. I just didn't want to face it. Then came that night. The night that changed everything. September 23rd. I'll never forget that date. I was driving home from a client meeting. It was raining. Typical Seattle autumn weather. I was driving south on I-5, heading home. The road was slippery. Visibility was poor, but I'd driven that route thousands of times. I could have driven it blindfolded. I was going about 60 miles per hour in the middle lane, paying attention. And then the traffic in front of me suddenly slowed down. I pressed the brake pedal. Nothing happened. I pressed harder. Still nothing. My brakes were completely gone. I can't describe the panic I felt at that moment. I was slamming on my brakes like crazy. Nothing was happening. I tried to downshift, but I was going too fast. There was a truck in front of me, its brake lights glowing red in the rain. I was about to crash. I swerved to the right and tried to pull over, but I lost control on the wet road. My car spun. I remember the sickening feeling of losing control, the world spinning around me, the sound of my own scream, and the impact that followed. My car hit the concrete barrier at 60 miles per hour. The airbags deploying, but not enough. The driver's side of my car crumpled like paper. Then everything went black. The next thing I remember was waking up. But waking up isn't the right word. Realized is more accurate. I realized I existed, that I was somewhere, that something had happened to me, but I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. I couldn't even open my eyes at first. I could hear the beeps of machines. There is nothing more painful than seeing the light go out in someone's eyes. There's nothing more painful than seeing the light go out in someone's eyes, he said. I empathize. It really sucks. You open your eyes, but nothing is ever the same again. It's very difficult. There were voices around me. I felt something in my throat, making it hard to breathe. But there was nothing I could do. Fear isn't even enough to describe what I was feeling. Imagine being conscious, but trapped inside your own body. You can't scream. You can't call for help. You can't even show anyone you're aware. This is a special kind of hell I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. Yes, maybe my worst enemy. Maybe Dylan and Vanessa. I later learned that I was in a coma for 4 days after the accident. Multiple broken ribs, internal bleeding, severe head trauma, a broken left arm. The doctors had to perform emergency surgery to keep me alive. When I finally regained consciousness, I was suffering from a condition called locked-in syndrome, a rare neurological condition in which you are fully conscious and aware, yet almost completely paralyzed. You can't move. You can't speak. You can't even blink, but your mind is completely intact. You can hear everything. You can understand everything. You can feel everything. The doctors didn't know I was conscious. They thought I was in a vegetative state. They talked about me as if I weren't there, standing right next to my bed, discussing my clinical prognosis. His brain activity is minimal, and the likelihood of him regaining consciousness is very low. If he wakes up, he likely has severe brain damage. His quality of life will be significantly reduced. And Dylan played the distraught husband perfectly. He was by my bedside constantly for the first few days, or so the nurses told me, holding my hand, talking to me, crying, telling me how much he loved me, how he couldn't lose me, how I had to fight to get back to him. What a performance. He should have won an Oscar. On day 5, I heard Vanessa's voice for the first time in my hospital room, with my wife by my side. How is she? Vanessa asked, her voice soft and concerned, as if she were playing a worried employee. No change, Dylan said, and I could hear the tension in her voice. But it wasn't the tension of grief. It was the tension of impatience. Vanessa said, "This must be so hard for you." There was a pause, and then I felt it. The pressure in my bed shifted. Someone sat down next to me, and then Dylan's voice was closer to her. "I know it sounds horrible," she said quietly, "but part of me wonders if it would have been better if she had never woken up. My heart would have stopped if she hadn't been on the machines." Did I hear that right? Did my husband just wish I wouldn't wake up? "Don't say that," Vanessa whispered, but there was something unconvincing in her voice. "I mean, look at this," Dylan continued. "Even if she wakes up, the doctor said she'll have severe brain damage. Claire won't be here anymore. She'll need 24/7 care. It would be cruel to keep her alive like this." What did that mean? Wasn't it cruel to take me away from life like this? She was so broken that even smiling hurt. I wanted to scream. I wanted to thrash around in bed. I wanted to grab him by the throat and make him look at me and see that I was still here. Still me. Still alive and aware. But I couldn't move a muscle. I was trapped, listening to my husband argue why I would be better off dead. Kelly began, then stopped. "What do I think it will be?" Dylan asked. Another pause. Then Vanessa's voice dropped even lower. "When do you think they'll make the decision about life support?" My God, They were talking about pulling the plug on me, killing me. My own husband and his mistress stood over my bed, discussing ending my life. The doctor said if she doesn't get better in 2 weeks, they will talk to me about options, Dylan said. They will probably recommend moving her to a long-term care facility. But I have medical power of attorney. I can make the decision to leave her in peace. This must be such a burden for you, Vanessa said. And I heard her approach, having to make a decision like that. It is, Dylan said. But I think if there was no hope, Claire would want me to leave her. She wouldn't want to live like this. She would want me to move on, to be happy again. Tears were streaming down my face. I couldn't feel them, couldn't wipe them away. But then a nurse noticed my pillow was wet. My body was crying, even though I couldn't control it. I couldn't express the pain and betrayal that was tearing at my chest. You deserve to be happy, Vanessa whispered. You've been through so much. And then I heard it, the voice that confirmed it all, the sound of them kissing, 6 feet away in my hospital room. As I lay paralyzed in bed, they were kissing, and I could hear their soft voices, and I wanted to throw up. I wanted to die. I wanted to do anything but lie there and listen to my husband kissing another woman while discussing my death. They stayed there for a while longer. For 10 minutes, they talked in low voices about ordinary things, about their meetings the next day, about a client dinner, about how she needed to go home and get some rest. They kissed again before leaving, and then I was left alone with the machines and the horrors I'd just learned. That night was the longest night of my life. I lay there in the dark, unable to sleep, unable to escape my own thoughts. 6 years of marriage, 6 years of my life dedicated to a man who was now planning my funeral while he was in a relationship. How long had it been going on? How long had he been lying to me? Had he ever loved me? Or was I just a convenience, a placeholder until something better came along? And the accident, the brake failure, was it really just an accident? Or something more? The thought kept creeping into my mind, even though I tried to push it away. Dylan was a successful businessman, not a murderer, right? But I still thought he was a devoted husband. And look how wrong I was about that. Over the next few days, Dylan and Vanessa visited regularly, always together, always playing their roles when the nurses were around. Vanessa the caring worker, Dylan the devoted husband. But when they thought they were alone, when they thought I couldn't hear them, they'd drop their masks. I learned a lot about their relationship during these visits. They'd been together for 7 months. It started at a conference in San Francisco. Vanessa was drunk. Dylan was stressed out about a failed deal. And one thing led to another. After that, they were inactive. Secret lunchtime meetings, weekend getaways that Dylan told me were at work conferences, late nights at the office that actually took place at Vanessa's apartment. Vanessa said one afternoon, "I'm so tired of sneaking around." Soon, Dylan promised her, when everything is settled, a little longer. That's what he called my death. Getting things done. They talked about their plans, how Dylan would sell our house, the house I loved so much, the house where we planned to start a family. They talked about how they would travel to Thailand for 3 months, a place we'd always talked about going to together, and how Vanessa would finally wear all the jewelry Dylan had given me for my birthdays and anniversaries over the years. Vanessa asked one day, her voice eager. "Yes, I'm in my jacket," Dylan said. I heard rustling. "Try it on." "Oh, Dylan, it's gorgeous," Vanessa whispered. "The diamonds are even more beautiful than they look in the pictures." That necklace, the diamond necklace he'd given me on our 3rd anniversary. He'd saved up for months, had it custom made, he'd said, as a symbol of his undying love for me. And now, as I lay paralyzed in a hospital bed, he was giving it to his mistress. The anger I felt in that moment was like nothing I'd ever experienced before. It burned like acid. I wanted to kill him. I wanted to watch him suffer the pain he'd inflicted on me. But all I could do was lie there and suffer. I absorbed every cruel word, every careless disdain for our life together, every exciting plan they'd hatched for their future. My future was built on my grave. On the 9th day after I woke up, things got worse, much worse. Dylan and Vanessa arrived later than usual that evening. The nurse had just left after checking my vital signs. I heard the door close and footsteps approach my bed. Vanessa asked. "It was good," Dylan said. "Actually, really good. I wanted to go over everything with you. Of course, baby, Vanessa said. I heard her settle into the chair next to my bed. Tell me all about it. So the life insurance policy is $1.8 million, Dylan began. His voice was practical, as if he were talking about a business arrangement and not my death. It pays out for accidental deaths, which it was. No problem there. $1.8 million. I didn't even know he'd taken out such a large policy on me. When did he do it? The house is currently worth about $950,000. Dylan continued. It's in both our names, but since he's dead, I get everything. There's no mortgage, so it's all equity. There's about $180,000 in her retirement account. Freelance insurance is another $300,000. We're looking at about $3.2 million in total. We're like Vanessa. He said, as if I had a right to money, as if I had a right to the life insurance policy that was supposed to protect our family, as if I had a right to the retirement savings I had accumulated over the years. Vanessa whispered, Dylan, this is incredible. I know, Dylan said, and I could hear the smile in his voice, the satisfaction. We could live our whole lives. We could buy that loft in South Lake Union. We love it. We could travel wherever we want. You can quit your jobs if you want. We'll have everything we've ever dreamed of. The secret I heard in my hospital bed part 2, Vanessa asked. The lawyer said it would take about 30 days after she's declared dead or they decide to take her off life support, Dylan explained. The house will take a little longer to sell, but I can put it up right away. Maybe I could stage it as a grieving widow, needing a fresh start. That would help it sell faster. They both laughed at that. Actually, they laughed at the idea of Dylan playing the grieving widower to sell our house faster. The house where we spent Christmas mornings and hosted dinners with friends. The house with the garden where I planted flowers every spring. The house where I dreamed of one day bringing our babies home from the hospital. I've already started looking at apartments, Vanessa said. There's a gorgeous penthouse in South Lake Union with floor-to-ceiling windows and a rooftop terrace. 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. It's $2.2 million, but we can easily afford it with the insurance money. Go to the list, Dylan finished. We'll see next week. Next week? While I was still alive, while I was still lying here listening to them, while I was still breathing, they were planning their lives together. Vanessa asked, have you thought about that? The lawyer helped me start planning. Actually, Dylan said, I'm thinking of something small and intimate. Just close family and friends. We'll have it at the nice funeral home with the garden. Are you going to have a funeral or a cremation? Vanessa asked. Cremation, Dylan said quickly. Burial plots are expensive and honestly, I don't want a place where I can just go and claim to have grieved. Besides, his family can't afford to make a grave into some grand memorial. My family. God. My family. My mom and dad, who loved Dylan like a son. My best friend, Mia, who was his friend before me. And what would that do to them? How would they cope with losing me and also learning the truth about Dylan? Vanessa agreed. What about furniture, clothes, jewelry, and other things? I'll donate most of the clothes, Dylan said. I'll keep the jewelry for you. And we can sell the furniture with the house. Or just keep what we want for our new place. I'll get rid of the rest. I want a fresh start. No reminders. No reminder. That's all I was to him now. A reminder to be thrown away. Not his wife. Not the woman he swore to love and cherish. Just a haunting reminder of a life he wanted to erase. I love you so much, Vanessa said softly. I know this is hard, but we are going to be so happy together. I love you too, Dylan replied. And to be honest, part of me is relieved. I was going to have to divorce him eventually. And this way is so much cleaner. No division of property, no alimony, no drama. The accident was almost appropriate. Appropriate. He described my accident as appropriate. The accident that left me paralyzed and trapped in my own body. The accident that broke my ribs, shattered my arm. Appropriate. And then Vanessa said the words that changed everything. Words that confirmed my darkest suspicions. Words that transformed this from a tragedy into a crime. Did you cut the brake lines as planned? Vanessa asked, her voice curious. Or was the accident truly a fluke? The room fell silent. The only sounds were the beeping of my monitors and the ragged breathing of the ventilator. My mind was screaming. Screaming so loud I thought someone could hear. He tried to kill me. Dylan tried to kill me. It wasn't an accident. He cut my brake lines. He sent me onto that rainy highway, knowing my brakes would fail. He tried to kill me for the insurance money and a girl half his age. Vanessa, Dylan said, his voice warning. What? Vanessa said. There's no one here. They can't hear us. You said yourself you're practically brain dead. I know. But still, Marcus said. We shouldn't talk about this. Come on, Vanessa said, and I could hear her approaching him. You can tell me. I've been looking forward to this. Did you really? Another long silence, and then Dylan's voice, quiet and cold. Yes, he said. I did. 2 days before the accident, I went to his car in the middle of the night and almost completely severed the brake lines. I weakened them enough that they would break under pressure, but not enough to prevent him from immediately noticing a problem. I knew he would be driving home from a client meeting. I also knew he would be on the highway. It had to look like an accident caused by rain and poor road conditions. Oh my God. Oh my God. He really did it. He really tried to kill me. My husband, the man I loved, the man I entrusted my life to. He snuck in the middle of the night, sabotaged my car, and sent me to my death. Awesome, Vanessa said, in her voice. How did you know how to do that? And she actually laughed. There are tutorials for that. For everything. I practiced on a wrecked car in a junkyard first to make sure I knew what I was doing. The whole thing took about 15 minutes. 15 minutes! It only took 15 minutes to plan and execute my murder. 15 minutes to destroy my marriage of 6 years. 15 minutes to try to end my life, Vanessa asked. A little, Dylan admitted, but brake failure in the rain is pretty common, especially on older cars. Claire's car was a 2016 model. It wasn't brand new, but it wasn't old enough to raise too many questions. The police investigated it as a simple accident. The entire front end was so damaged that they didn't even check the brake lines thoroughly. Vanessa murmured. And brave. I don't know if I could have done it. You didn't have to, Dylan said. I did it for us, for our future, so we could be together without all the hassle of divorce. They kissed again. I could hear them. I could hear Vanessa moaning softly. I could hear the rustle of clothes. And I had to lie there and listen to them celebrate my murder. My attempted murder. Because I wasn't dead. I was alive. And now I knew the truth. The anger and pain I felt in that moment was indescribable. Beyond anything I'd ever felt before. It was a howling, screaming hurricane inside my chest. I wanted to tear him apart with my bare hands. I wanted to make him feel every bit of pain he'd inflicted on me. I wanted him to know I heard everything, that I knew what he'd done, that he hadn't gotten away with it. But I couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't do anything but lie there with tears streaming down my face, knowing my husband was a murderer and I was his intended victim. They stayed there for another hour, making plans, discussing their future, kissing and touching while I lay a few feet away. When they finally left, I was left alone with my thoughts, my anger, and the terrifying knowledge of what Dylan had done. I had to find a way to tell someone. I had to let them know I was still here, still conscious, still aware. But how could I communicate when I couldn't move or speak? When everyone thought I was in a vegetative state? The answer came the next day, and her name was Rachel. Rachel Torres was a nurse in the intensive care unit. Young, maybe 28, with kind eyes and a gentle touch. She had been caring for me since the day I was transferred from the ICU and always talked to me while she worked. Unlike the other nurses, who treated me like an object to be looked after, Rachel treated me like a person. Good morning, Claire, he said as he walked in that morning. How are you today? Let's check your vital signs and get you cleaned up. He strode effortlessly around the room, checking the machines, adjusting my making notes on his tablet, and then leaning over to suction the ventilator tube in my throat. A routine he performed several times a day. He said, as he always did, that it might be a little uncomfortable. Just try to relax. Then he realized. I saw his eyes widen as he looked at me. Claire, he said, his voice vague. Is that you? Are you crying? I was crying. I was crying again. I couldn't control the tears. I couldn't stop them. It was the only way my body could express the torture I was going through. Oh, honey, Rachel said softly, reaching for a tissue to gently wipe my face. I know this must be very scary for you. If I had the ability to laugh, I would have laughed bitterly. Wherever I was right here, in this hell, listening to everything, feeling everything, but unable to do anything about it. Rachel finished cleaning my face and went back to work, but I could see her glance at me occasionally, a thoughtful expression on her face. She was thinking about something. She returned that afternoon. She did her usual checkups, then did something different. She pulled up a chair next to my bed and sat down, looking directly at me. "Claire," he said quietly, "I have to ask you something. And I know this is going to sound crazy, but can you hear me? If you can understand what I'm saying, just try to blink once." Can you do that? Could I blink? I'd never tried. I'd been trapped in this body for over a week, paralyzed, unable to move. But maybe I could control my eyelids. Maybe that tiny muscle still worked. I focused everything I had on my right eyelid, all my remaining concentration, all my strength. Blink. Blink. Damn it. Blink. And I felt it. The slightest movement. My eyelid fluttered slightly. Rachel whispered. Her hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my God, Claire. You can hear me, right? Do it again. Blink if you understand." I did it again, focusing everything on that tiny movement. My eyelid fluttered again. Rachel's eyes. "Oh my God," she said again. "You're in there. You're conscious. You've been conscious this whole time." She stood up quickly, looking around as if unsure of what to do. "I need to go to the doctor. I need to tell them." No, she couldn't tell them yet. Not while Dylan still had medical power of attorney. Not while she could pull the plug on me. I had to tell Rachel the truth first. She needed to know what Dylan had done. So how could I convey this? How could I say it with a wink? Rachel must have seen the panic in my eyes, because she sat back. "Wait," she said. "Are you scared?" Blink once for yes, twice for no. I blinked once. Yes. God. Yes. I was so scared. Rachel said thoughtfully. "Are you in pain?" She blinked twice. There was no physical pain I could stand. It was the emotional pain that was killing me. "Is something wrong?" Rachel asked. A blink. Yes. Everything was wrong. Rachel bit her lip, trying to figure out how to help me. "I'll get a letter board. It'll take time, but we can spell words." "Can you move your eyes from side to side?" she said. I tried. I focused on moving my eyes to the left. They shifted slightly, then to the right. Another small movement. "Perfect," Rachel said, standing. "I'll be right back. Don't worry, Claire. We'll figure this out." He left the room, and for the first time since I'd woken, I was left with a tiny glimmer of hope. Rachel knew I was conscious. She would help me. Maybe, just maybe, I could tell someone the truth about Dylan. Rachel returned 15 minutes later with a printed sheet of paper. The alphabet is organized into a grid, with letters grouped by frequency. She held it up where I could see it. "Okay," she said. "This will be slow, but it will work. I'll point to different sections. And when I point to the section with the letter you want, you blink. Then we'll narrow it down. Ready?" We began the arduous process. Rachel was pointing to a section of letters. I blinked when she reached the right spot. She narrowed it down letter by letter. It took about 45 minutes to write the first word, danger. Rachel's face paled. "Are you in danger?" she asked. "From what? From who?" "My husband." "Your husband?" Rachel asked, a mixture of surprise and fear in her voice. "Dylan, but he's been here every day. He seems very attached to you. If I could laugh, I would." "Are you loyal?" "Of course. I'm committed to my life insurance." We kept spelling it out. It took hours. Rachel had to leave and return to see other patients. But slowly, in painful letters, I told her everything about the affair, the plans for my funeral, the money, and finally, what I'd heard Vanessa ask and what Dylan had confessed. "Friendlismicist." Rachel leaned back in her chair, her face pale. "He tried to kill you," she whispered. "Oh my God, Claire. He tried to kill you for the insurance. Money." A wink. "Yes, and you heard him admit it. Him and his mistress." A wink. "When are they coming to visit again?" Rachel asked. I explained tonight. Rachel glanced at the clock. It was 5:30 p.m. Dylan and Vanessa usually arrived around 6:30 p.m. "Okay," Rachel said, her voice firm. "Okay. I believe you, Claire. And we will get them. I will record this. I will hide my phone where it can record audio. And if they say anything incriminating, we will have proof." He stood up and looked around the room, trying to find a good hiding place. Finally, He tucked his phone behind the water jug on the table next to my bed, positioning it so the microphone was exposed, but the phone itself was hidden. He's recording, she whispered to me. If they confess again, we'll have proof. Just relax, okay? I'll be right outside if you need me. Rachel left, and I was left alone with the recording phone and my racing thoughts. Would they say something incriminating? Or was yesterday's conversation a one-time occurrence? A moment of inattention that would never be repeated? At 6:45 p.m., I heard the door open. It was Dylan and Vanessa. "Hey baby," Dylan said, and I realized he was talking to me, saying something to everyone watching. "How are you today? Any changes?" He was probably checking the machines or looking at my chart. "Still nothing," he said, and now his tone was different, flat, disappointed. "It's been about 2 weeks," Vanessa said. "When can you talk to the doctors you know?" "The neurologist said he'll give me a full evaluation tomorrow," Dylan said. "If he confirms there's no brain activity and no chance of recovery, I may decide to turn off life support," Vanessa asked. "And then we wait," Dylan said. "Once we take the ventilator off, he'll be dead within a few hours. Then we start the process of getting everything back on track." They were talking about killing me right then and there, right in front of me. They were easily discussing dismantling the machines that kept me alive. And they didn't know I could hear every word. Rachel's phone was recording every word. "I can't wait to start our life together," Vanessa said. "For us to really start, without us having to sneak around." "Me too," Dylan said. "You know what I was thinking after the funeral? After everything was settled, we should take a trip somewhere tropical. The Maldives or Bora Bora. Get away from it all." Vanessa asked and chuckled. She actually chuckled as she debated spending the money left over from my death. "Why?" Dylan said. "He won't need it. Let's just enjoy it." There was silence for a moment. Then Vanessa spoke again, her voice lower. "Do you feel any guilt for what you did?" My heart rate accelerated, the monitor beeping faster. "Come on, Dylan. Admit it again. Admit what you did." "I'm guilty," Dylan said. "Not exactly. I didn't mean to hurt her, but our marriage was over. She was holding me back. It's cleaner this way. She doesn't suffer the pain of divorce. I don't lose half my assets. And you and I will be together. It's better for everyone." "But you killed him," Vanessa said. "Or tried to. Doesn't that bother you at all?" "Tell me," I thought. "Let's say you cut the brake lines. Admit it out loud. One more time." "Look," Dylan said, his voice growing harsher. "We've talked about this before. It happened. The brake lines were pretty worn anyway. I just helped them out. It wasn't like I shot him or anything. It was quick, probably painless. He probably didn't even realize what was going on before the accident. There he was, not as obvious as before, but still close enough. He'd confessed to tampering with my brakes, causing the accident, trying to kill me." Vanessa said. "I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm being weird about this. Just being here with him. It feels so creepy." "We don't need to stay long," Dylan said. "Long enough to look worried if anyone asks. Then we can go back to your place." They stayed for another 10 minutes, talking about ordinary things. A client meeting, a TV show Vanessa wanted to watch, what to have for dinner. They were just a normal couple, having a normal conversation, except one of them was standing over the woman he worked for. When they finally left, I wanted to sob with relief. It was with us. Rachel's phone had recorded everything. Their casual conversations about Dylan's confession to helping fix my brake lines and how they were going to spend my insurance money. It was all on there. Rachel returned 5 minutes after they left. She picked up her phone, put on her headphones, and listened to the recording. I watched a range of emotions cross her face. Shock, disgust, horror, anger. When she was finished, she looked at me with tears in her eyes. "I'm so sorry," he said. "I'm so sorry this happened to you. But we have it now, Claire. This recording has everything. I'm going to call the police and your family. We're going to make sure Dylan pays for what he did to you." A wink. "Yes. Thank God. Yes. But first," Rachel said, "I need to talk to the doctor. You have locked-in syndrome, Claire." Rachel's voice was trembling, but there was also determination within it. "Not only can you not move, but we can talk now. We will save you, Claire." Then she looked into my eyes, as if she believed her words would bring me back to life. In that moment, something swelled inside me I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Rachel left the room. My heart was pounding. Maybe in a few days, maybe a few weeks, Dylan's entire plan would fall apart. But I also felt a twinge of fear. If Dylan realized Rachel suspected something, she would be in danger too. She didn't know how dangerous Dylan could be. I knew, because I'd experienced his dark side behind that smile he lovingly adorned. Rachel returned a few hours later. With her was one of the doctors, Dr. Patel. He was a middle-aged man with a serious look. Tears welled up in my eyes as Rachel explained the situation to him. "Doctor, he's responding to blink commands. He's fully conscious." Dr. Patel leaned over and took my hand. "Claire, if you can hear me, blink once." I did. "Great," he said. "Again." I did it again. The man nodded, a look of disbelief on his face. "Rachel, you were right. This is incredible. The patient's brain functions are active. We need to do a neurological evaluation immediately." I thought about Dylan's face then. What he would do when he heard this news. A sudden chill ran through me. Because if he found out, he would know his plan had been exposed before it was even completed. Rachel must have sensed this, because before she left the room, she leaned over and whispered in my ear, "We won't tell anyone yet. I called your parents. Your mom and dad are on their way. I called the police too, but you might need to get somewhere safe from here before Dylan finds out." Tears welled up in my eyes. Yes, I was so scared that even crying felt like a solution. Rachel shook my hand, then left the room with the doctor. Time dragged on. My heart felt like it was about to burst from my chest. Every second, I imagined Dylan opening the door and walking in. And then he did. The door creaked open, and Dylan walked in, alone, holding flowers. "Hey, honey," he said in his fake, loving voice. "I'm a little late today. Here's some lavender, your favorite flowers." Just the sight of him made me feel cold. It took all my strength not to blink. If he noticed anything, he might know Rachel had warned me. Dylan sat down next to my bed and placed the flowers by my bed. He looked at me for a moment, then spoke quietly. "I'll talk to the doctors tomorrow. There's nothing more I can do for you, Claire. You have to understand that. Sometimes you have to let go." There was a fake sadness in his voice, but there was nothing in his eyes. No regret, no love, just emptiness. At that moment, the door opened. Rachel walked in. Her smile was professional, but her eyes were watching Dylan. "Mr. Warren," she said politely, "visiting hours are almost over, but can I take you outside for a minute? Dr. Patel would like to talk to you." Dylan was surprised. "With me? Why?" "Routine evaluation," Rachel said. "Just a few minutes." Dylan studied me for a moment, then stood. "Okay, honey. I'll be right back." When the door closed, Rachel quickly pulled out her phone and called me. "The police are outside the hospital. Your family is on their way. We'll keep Dylan busy for a bit. Don't worry." At that moment, I felt my whole body shaking. Maybe not, but the fear inside me was like a storm. If Dylan noticed, we might not make it out alive. Minutes passed like hours. Then there was shouting outside. A male voice, Dylan's. Then the door slammed open, and Rachel screamed. Dylan burst in, his face red with anger. "What did you do, Rachel?" He had his phone in his hand. He must have found Rachel's phone on the table. "You called the police, didn't you?" he shouted. "Did you try to set me up?" Rachel stepped back, but her eyes held more determination than fear. "Yes, Dylan. I know everything. I listened to the recording. You cut the brake lines. You tried to disarm your wife." "Bullshit," Dylan shouted, but his voice was trembling. "She's crazy. She doesn't even remember anything." Rachel turned and took a step toward the door. "The police are here, Dylan. It's all over." At that moment, Dylan lunged forward. He grabbed Rachel by the arm, sending her phone crashing to the floor. "It's not over," she shouted. "No one gets that recording." My heart nearly stopped. The monitors began to scream. Rachel struggled, but Dylan was stronger than her. He pushed past her and headed for the door. Just then, shouts rang out from outside. "Police, put your hands up." The door opened again. Two cops burst in, one pulling Rachel aside, the other pushing Dylan against the wall. "What's going on here?" one said, but Rachel was already explaining, breathless. "Listen to the recording. It's all there. Insurance fraud, attempted murder, all of it." Dylan's expression collapsed. Gone was the confident and control man. In his place was a stranger, breathing in panic, his eyes wide with fear. "No," he mumbled. "This is a mistake. But the police cut him off." The handcuffs were slapped on. Rachel turned to me, one hand clutching her chest. Okay, Claire, you're safe now. Beeps returned to normal. The tornado inside me was slowly dissipating. I was free. 3 days later, as the sun rose in the hospital room, my parents arrived. Rachel was there. Now everyone knew the truth. Dylan had been arrested, and Vanessa had been taken into custody for questioning. The confessions on the recording device had changed everything. My lawyer, the police, the prosecutor, they had all come to my room. But I was most grateful to Rachel, because she wasn't just a nurse, she was the person who brought me back to life. Dr. Patel arrived with a new device. Claire, today we're going to do a little experiment. We'll use your brain signals to tell the computer to choose letters. Now you can talk. That moment was indescribable. The words, the screams, the confessions that had been bottled up inside me for years were finally coming out. Text began to appear on the screen. Thank you, Rachel. Rachel burst into tears. You are an incredible woman, Claire. You fought to survive. Now everyone will see how strong you are. A month later, Dylan's trial began. I was still in the hospital, but my testimony was taken by video. The prosecutor presented Rachel's secret recording, Dylan's confession, and my text messages one by one. I watched Dylan's face on the screen. For the first time, I saw him afraid. Vanessa testified. She finally confessed everything. She admitted that Dylan had manipulated her, that he had orchestrated the murder. The courtroom was silent as the judge read his verdict. Dylan Warren is sentenced to life imprisonment for attempted murder, insurance fraud, and tampering with evidence. As the words echoed, my heart raced again. But this time, not from fear but from freedom. Months passed. I started physical therapy. First my fingers moved, then my arms. Every millimeter of movement was a miracle. Rachel was always there, always saying, "You're doing great, Claire." One morning, I wiggled my fingers, and Rachel said with a smile, "Now you're truly reborn." Yes, I was being reborn. The old Claire had died in that accident. But now, rising from the ashes, was a new me, a woman who grew stronger in the silence, who learned to breathe despite betrayal, who knew the meaning of justice. A year later, I was standing in the hospital garden. The sky was turning orange as the sun set. Rachel was sitting next to me, 2 coffees in hand. "So what are you going to do now?" she asked. I took a deep breath. "I'll write it," I said at the computer screen. "My whole story, so that no one else stays silent." Rachel smiled. "People need to hear your story, Claire, because you didn't just survive, you took back justice." I looked up at the sky. Once, I was surrounded by deathly silence. Now there was wind, birdsong, and the sound of my own breathing. In that moment, I understood, not revenge, but keeping the truth alive was the greatest victory. And I closed my eyes. This time, not out of fear, but out of peace.